These fireside chats for me are a really good insight. Gregg and Sam are going to be talking about how you can lead with culture and the importance of leadership and what it means for the industry. So Gregg and Sam, welcome to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone. I said good morning. Good morning. Ah, there we go. I wish I would have had some Post-it notes after the last section. I could have put my notes up here on the board. So glad to be with you all today. Thanks to Industry Now for having me back. This is one of the more fun programs that I get to participate in. And when they asked me to do my fireside chat with Jeff last year, it was amazing. This one, it will be equally amazing, if not better, because I get to do it with my friends and create new questions because we have a relationship. So we've got 30 minutes. We're on the clock. I'm not going to take up all of your time, but Gregg, thank you very much for participating this year.
I'm thrilled to be here, like always. I wish there was a fire, you know.
Yeah, maybe they stream that behind us at one point in time.
It would be nice.
Maybe. Well, anyway, so Gregg, thank you again, and you've got an amazing story. Your culture, background, I mean, over the last couple of years, getting to know you has been inspiring to me personally, so I'm hoping I can share some of that knowledge and wisdom that you've given to me. But just as a set the stage, a background, how you go from a forensic accountant at UK to now founder, CEO of multi-brands. So if you could kind of just give them the quick story of that.
So like any college kid, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I wanted the best well-rounded business education that I possibly could have, and decided I was going to go into accounting. Decided I was going to be a forensic accountant, tax accountant, not just forensic tax accountant. And I was hired as one of two hires to go to Arthur Andersen's International Tax Division, and I was tasked with the job of helping people to bury taxes or find taxes when people cheated. And somehow they told me to take a semester off, and out of the blue, a guy by the name of Jimmy John called me and offered me an opportunity to work for him. And I answered the phone, and it was, "Hey, I'm Jimmy John." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know who the F you are, because I've never heard of Jimmy John's before." And he goes, "Jimmy John, Jimmy John subs." And I'm like, "Still, no effing idea, dude." And he goes, "I'm going to have a plane for you tomorrow in Lexington, and you're going to fly to meet me in Champaign, and I'm going to change your life." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I go, gave me the time, gave me where I was supposed to be, and sure enough, called home that night and asked my mom or my dad if you ever knew who the hell Jimmy John was. And he goes, "I know the family, I know who he is." He goes, "Go see." Sure enough, a plane pulls up, and out comes his assistant, asked me to get on the plane, and we fly to Champaign. Jimmy pulls up in his Lamborghini and doing donuts outside, trying to act cool, and I got in the car, and the rest of my life has changed ever since. And that's sort of how I got in the restaurant business.
It's amazing how a random phone call, right, could change your life, and you actually take the phone call and the opportunity.
Today I would tell my kid never to get in that car. I would say never get on that plane, never do that. What are you, crazy? There's crazy people. Back then we had no way to prove anything, and I got on a plane like an idiot.
So here you go. You work for Jimmy. It's an interesting culture. You're developing your own skill set. And really, you and Jimmy kind of end up being like the yin and the yang within the organization and developing leadership in that culture and have the opportunity to develop your own leadership philosophy. Why don't you share a little bit about that philosophy and how it pertains to managing teams and this dynamic, fast-paced workforce?
So when you're thrown into an ocean and you're told to swim, you learn to swim. And that was sort of what Jimmy John's was. Jimmy was the most passionate, driven, system person I've ever met in my life, but he also was building a company with no rhyme or reason. We were getting lucky at that point. And I had to learn how to develop talent, how to build talent, and how to get people I was 21 years old, how to get people to work for a 21-year-old as you moved up the pipeline. And that was the hardest thing to sort of dictate. I couldn't be their boss, and I couldn't have this hierarchy of me at the top and everyone else had to listen to me because I wasn't in that position. I was 21 years old. And so I had to develop a very, very flat company where everybody had to have the input in the direction to get us to where we needed to go. And so I instantly realized that I could build this organization if I treated everybody as my equal. And I allowed everyone to have the same, in a room, we had the same ideas, the same thoughts, and we worked through them. Once we walked out, we had a direction. And yes, in my position, I could override, I could dictate, but it became real clear I needed their experience to teach me how I was building. And I sort of kept that philosophy throughout, that I'm not the smartest person in the room at any time, and I should never be the smartest person at my table. I should surround myself by a table of much smarter people, and then it's my job to dictate and sort of bring everything into one so we can go out in marching orders. My job is to make them better and for them to make the company better, but then me lead them through that. And that's sort of what I learned at a very young age that I continue throughout today.
You know, and I can be a testament to that. I've done some things with Gregg over the years, and I'll ask for, you know, we're a people industry, right? We like to refer each other and so forth, and Gregg's been kind enough to share some of his network for individuals that I've needed. Every single individual he has referred to me, I can see why they spent time with Gregg from what he talks about and are passionate about him. And when I call and say, Gregg referred me, he goes, I know, Gregg already texted me, what do you need? Gregg said, take care of you. And they do. And that's a testament to the leadership and the employee engagement. So how did you foster this engaging, you touched on it a little bit, but also how did you manage that employee satisfaction and keep retention? Because a lot of people work for you for a long period of time in your stores and your franchises and so forth.
The first couple years I lost people, and I lost them because they didn't want to work for a 21-year-old or 22-year-old. It was below them. And so part of me then realized that it was very important to install a culture where people move on, but you want them to move on to better things. And so it became our mission to sort of groom everybody for their next job or their next stepping stone. And if that was within our organization, then we were winning. But if they had to go somewhere else to be great, then it was our job to get them the tools and the procedures so they can go and be great. And not everybody that comes with you for the ride is going to be with you at the end. And that's the hardest thing to sort of make everyone aware. People get hurt by that. And it's came to the realization that that was a good thing. Now it's a focal point of what we do, that we want to build everyone for the next thing. And I tell everyone who comes and works for me that my goal is you stay with me forever. In the reality of the situation, you're going to go on to somewhere else and get that next step. Because if you want to be CEO or a president, well, I'm sitting here, I'm not leading right now. You're not going to have my job, but you're ready for that next step, or a company where you can have more throughput or more ideas flow through because it's time for you to get that behind you. It's our job to help you find that. And sometimes you got to let people go so they can go and do what they need to do. And so we make hard decisions at times in an organization as you grow and as you bring people in. When's the right time, or who do you let go? Because you don't always need everybody in your team. And the hardest decision is, it's real easy to let go of the person that is not ready yet for the next best thing, but you still have work to do. It's real hard to let go of the person that's ready to go on their own. And sometimes you make the decision to let your best person go so they can go and expand. And in the end, once they realize that, they hate you for a little bit, you know, because you let them go. But once they realize it was the right decision, they come back and they realize what you did for them. And that's a hard thing to do, but it was something I learned at a young age that was so important to building up my people. Now, when I need a new person to work for me, I don't go and post ads. I don't go and recruit. I don't do all that. I call my old employees and they send me their underlings for their next job because they know that I'll build them up so they're ready for the next thing. And so that's sort of how we all repay each other. And it just continues to work that way.
How do you, I want to take a side question here. How do you handle, because we're all people, we're all emotional, and yes, you can read everything about, oh, you got to be hard and cut and don't think about it. At the end of the day, we're in the hospitality industry, we care about people. How do you handle that stress? When you make a decision that you need to move somebody on or promote them, and they've been with you a long time, there's a relationship there. How do you handle that stress? Like, is there a tip that you could give people on how to deal with that? I know it's hard.
If you don't feel, you shouldn't be in this industry. So if you're a leader and you're trying to build your team in any industry, if you don't feel every time you have to make a hard decision, you're not a leader. because at one point you're going to get burnt out and someone's going to come in who has that compassion that takes your spot. Anytime you make a hard decision, it tears you apart and it rips you from the inside, no matter who it is or what it is, because you're affecting someone's livelihood. And you have to do what's right for the company, but at the same time, what's right for them. And it's just something you've got to believe you've done right by them over the course of time, that not everyone's going to understand immediately. And you take that brunt and you sort of take that in the chest when they yell, they scream, they call you names, and you realize you're doing it for the right reasons. And then, again, you help them succeed. You're there for them when they go somewhere else. You ask questions. You answer for them. You don't abandon them. Anyone who has ever worked for me is always part of my family and is always part of my team. So as they go to other companies and as they go to that, you'll see our fingerprints on their organizations because we're continuing to help them, mentor them, and lead them. And that's what makes them so attractive to other people when they leave, is that they know that they always have the people that they worked for to come back to. And I can use my old employer as an example. I was thrown out when I decided to leave. They wanted nothing to do with me. I was out. They rewrote the company history books to remove my name. And it took almost 10 years, and I still sat on the board and they did this. And it took about 10 years for them to finally acknowledge what I did during my time, and it was like a reminder of how not to be. And I use that every day, is that I want people to come back to me. I want them to be proud of their time and not try to obliviate it. I couldn't have gotten to where I am without every person that's ever worked for me. And that's every person, not just my staff, not just my team. It's the dishwashers, it's the cooks, it's the servers, it's the busboys, it's the drivers. It's the bike drivers that I started with. It's the GM of a store that trained me when I first started in the restaurant industry. I would not be anything without each and every one of them, and I know that every day.
You know, we are in such an evolving part of our industry and time now, right? Coming out of COVID, getting back to this new norm, the different generations, whether it's millennials, Zs, alphas, leading this workforce through these changes and using technology, the menu updates, shifting consumer preferences. How are you leading that adapting to change piece?
I don't know if you ever adapt fully. You have to know what the new generations are, how they think and learn. And there's some changes that you got to make to how you talk to them, how you treat them, how you sugarcoat their feelings. Because in the old days, you were able to say, hey, let's go, you got to move, or hey, you were 10 minutes late, get the heck out of here. You don't do that because you had people coming at you at all times. And you're not able to do that anymore. So now it's, okay, how do I work with this generation that sits there and will know that they can go across the street and find another job, but yet still hold your culture in place? My culture is, say something, you're going to do it, be on time, never be late, call if you're going to be late. That's the culture that we have. And how do I hold them to that when they can be late or no-show because they know they can find a job everywhere else? And it's one of those where you have to find a way to connect with them, that they're helping you do something that's bigger than what they are. And so part of the job and part of what we do that's so different is that we are honest with them with what we're building every day. And we let them in on the story and the struggles that we're facing and why we're doing it. A cook or a dishwasher knows why sales are down. They have that conversation. It's an open conversation that we have. If we're doing great, we tell them why. We're giving them the tools to continue to grow. We're investing in them. We're putting in new training procedures. We're making training, in every language, thanks to services like Opus and stuff like that we're trying to drive. And yes, I did plug them, and yes, I use them. And yes, they're the best out there. So there's things that you have to have in place, and the training's got to change to the way they think. You can't have training where it's just paper and someone standing there and they go sit in there and watch a video. That doesn't relate to the generation today. They learn in 15-second increments thanks to Instagram and TikTok and everything else. It's being a part of that culture and putting that type of things in there and showing that you can change. I'm not the person that should be in that video. I got to hire a new group of individuals that fit that persona to be the ones leading them, teaching them, putting them in place. I know how to do it, but it's my team that has to go and connect with them on a new level. And we got to provide the tools to make it so realistic and like it's not learning anymore. It's fun and it's easy and something they don't mind. And they can scroll like this. You've seen all your kids or up or down or left or right, whatever it is. You know that they're capable of doing this. They're capable of learning. And if it's fun, they'll scroll through it. And those are the things that you got to think. And now that may be today. Tomorrow we may all be wearing headsets, walking around, not seeing anybody. And we joke all the time about it because since the Apple device came out, I want one just so I can have it. But yet I don't know what I would do with it. But eventually those are the things that are going to continue to change in the way we lead them.
So what you're saying is you and I, being very attractive, middle-aged, balding dads, are not going to get picked up by Rachel for all of her videos coming forward.
No. Dad bods don't cut it.
But yeah, shameless plug for Opus. We just rolled it out as well.
No, really? I didn't know that.
Shocker, right? And I'm behind on my training, so I need to work on that. So as we look at communication strategies, so you mentioned Opus, you mentioned texting, you mentioned the scrolling. Yes, most of our hires have the attention span of a goldfish, right? I'm trying to captivate everybody in this room right now and keep them on task. What are some other communication? Like, we use text more than we ever have, right? What are some other communication strategies that you're deploying?
I mean, it's really the text and email. They don't look, and email's a decade ago. It's text. You can't even get applicants to answer their phone. So how do you communicate with them? You've got to communicate the way they communicate, and those are through those devices. Snapchat. We can't employ it because we're at a point now where we're too big, but before I had managers using Snapchat to talk to their employees. There's no way to back that up or have that data and stuff like that. It's a no-no, but those were the things that, how they wanted you to communicate. Employees would say, oh, hey, my Snapchat's this, you can get me on that. I can't do that. It's, oh, no. But those are the things that we have to figure out, how to expand that data and how to get to them. So the texting, the non-phone calls, the being available, being in front of them. So with this generation, and as it was back when I started, what we did uniquely in the restaurant industry is I believe in set schedules. So, which is not normal in this restaurant space. I believe in set schedules. I set my schedules up for a 3-month window. And so my employees know their life for 3 months. They give me their availability. We write the schedule. It's set for a quarter. They're then able to go out, they're able to party, they're able to go and do events, they know they get their 2 days off, they're able to plan, they don't have to worry about phone calls. Yes, they're on call, and we can call them and ask them to work more, but they know their lives. And to me, that was the most important thing I've ever done in a restaurant because, one, how many of us hated writing schedules every week? It's a disaster. So if we set this and we fill these blocks based on what the restaurant needs and not what each employee individually needs, they rock in their block schedule, they then have a quality of life. Quality of life is something that's not heard of in the restaurant industry. It's why people don't want to be a part of it. So if you can give your individuals and your staff a quality of life where they actually know when they're going to work for a period of time, why would they leave you? You're giving them everything they want. So that was something that I learned that Jimmy actually was doing when I started, and it was the best thing we've ever seen because all of my staff could write their schedule. And then if someone fell off, I only had to fill those blocks. I didn't have to rewrite the whole schedule. I had to find the 4 shifts that they worked and fill that hole with somebody else. And then because I never scheduled in the old days, everybody for their max amount of hours, if you came in and said you wanted 30, I scheduled for 20. And we still don't schedule the max amount of hours, and I get yelled at when we do this because, we need people. I want them filling the holes. And it's something that we're very, very important about, that if you want 30, you get 25 with us. So you have 5 more hours you can pick up over a course of a week. So if something comes up, you've already said, I want 30. You can fill that hole. It's available to you to make the decision.
And you run that in a 90-day block?
90 days.
Wow. And you still do that in all your restaurants today?
Yep.
Wow. That's you don't hear that very often.
The quality of life is so important.
How do you manage the ups and downs, like with catering or I mean, obviously you know holidays and you've got historical data. How do you manage the up and down?
I mean, there's always exceptions. I mean, on college campuses, there's home football games. So on home football games, that rule is everyone has to work a 2-hour block to fill the schedule. I mean, so there's rules on top of it that you always employ, but then they know that too. Okay, it's a home football game. I know I'm going to have to pick up 2 hours. No big deal. Or instead of working this week, this guy's going to work 4 hours and I'm going to work the next 4 hours so I don't have to worry about it. I can go enjoy the college football game. So depends on where you are in the stores and stuff like that. You just got to do things for them. And scheduling has always been about us in the restaurant industry. And I listen to the horror stories of managers. Oh, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need them to work this. No, we write schedules for them. And if we take that mindset and that sort of approach, who do you think they're loyal to? They're now loyal to that store, that environment, that job over somebody else because nobody else does that. It gives you a leg up on keeping your staff.
As you talk about that and really being the servant leader that you are, right? Because this dials into that. Our employees do have a lot of challenges, whether it's monetary challenges, personal challenges. How do you embrace that and work with them? You've told me some great stories over the years, but as a philosophy, how do you handle the employee struggles to make them loyal?
I mean, I've been very, very fortunate in my life to be able to be very, very successful at a young age. So I do things that most people can't do. I've made mortgage payments. I put down payments on people's houses. I've paid rent when they've been going to have an eviction. I have, bought an employee a car because they couldn't come to work. But I'm one that's very, very fortunate, and I know, and I learned, and this is something Jimmy did. You have more than what you need in life, and some people just don't. And if they're loyal to you and they work their butt off for you, for me to go ahead and buy a $7,000 car and give it to her as a bonus was not a big deal because she'd been with me 7 years and she was making me an ungodly amount of money in this restaurant. Or, we heard about a driver that had been driving, and again, Jimmy John's drivers should never drive this long, but had been driving for me for 12 years. And he was building his business, and this was his side job. Well, he lost his main account. He was a freelancer, and he was a designer. He was going to get evicted, and he didn't tell us that he couldn't pay his mortgage. And he was, when banks were willing to close quick, it was like 3 months late or something like that. And it wasn't a lot of money. We paid it. But yet he still drives, even though he's a freelancer. He's 38 years old now. And he still drives 2 shifts a week just because I did that. And, and it's just the things you can do to change the lives of people in this industry is so small, but so big to them. And I learned, again, Jimmy did fertility treatments for people. We bought teeth because they had cracked teeth. I learned all that from him. And as much as he has a reputation of being extremely brash, the man had the biggest heart I've ever seen. And he would always go and give his employees more than what he ever should have because they didn't have it. And I've taken that and I've learned that from him, that how important that is. And my dad did the same thing when I was growing up. He, had employees that he'd taken care of and paid more for and stuff like that. I just always saw these two individuals in my life give more than what they should to the people around them. And because of that, they also kept people. And it was extremely important to me to see that. And those are the things that I still practice today. I can't technically do all of it anymore because of the way the world is, but we still find ways to do it.
Because we're in the people business at the end of the day. If you were mentoring an up-and-coming CEO or founder, or for the audience here today, what's a piece of advice for them to remember to take away today on fostering a great culture?
Be truthful with who you are and lead into your strengths, and surround yourself by people that are better than you in the areas that you're weak in. So, and being vulnerable to your team. So most CEOs don't want to appear vulnerable. They don't want to seem emotional. They don't want to seem that, you're a real person, or let your reality of what you are sort of triumph. And the more real you can be with your team, the more they're going to buy into what you try to do and who you are. And, I am probably considered by my team a big teddy bear most of the time, but a lot of the time I can be a jackass, but that's my job. But when it comes down to it, they all know that they can call me for anything and that I'd be the first one to come through. If something's wrong in their lives, I'd be the one helping them through it. And those are the things that you got to lead with. And you have to have that type of culture from your top person. And from that to build an organization and build the culture right. I want that to be a continual thing, that I want them to do the same for their team and their staff. We go out of our ways to make their lives better and their situations better, and have a heart. Lead with it. In the business world, so often you're told that the heart is a bad thing and it gets you in trouble. And the answer is, of course it does. The heart is going to get you in trouble. But if you lead with your heart and lead with compassion when you're doing your job, in the end, your culture becomes so much better because you're truthful to who you are and they know what you are, and you have this vulnerability between each other that then you want to help each other succeed. And that's where the magic starts to happen, is when they want to do it because they believe in what you're doing. And the more that you can have that happen, the stronger the team gets through. And we always joke, and I joke, I can get someone to run through a wall for me. And you take that as it's something very, very bad, but they do it because they bleed for me, and it's something that you don't ever want to say or acknowledge. But if you're truthful and you're giving them opportunity and you're giving them advancement and you're making their lives better and you believe in them, people want to be all in on their leader. And it's your job, especially in any job, is to get them to move your business. And they'll go through and fight through anything to get you to that point. And that's the magic. That's what you got to figure out. And not every leader can do it. In this industry, I know 3 or 4 that can do it, and that have the heart that I have. And they're the ones that you're sort of seeing their stock continuing to rise. And then you see others that get put in the top spot, and they don't have that heart and compassion, and things start to sort of founder and fall apart, and what you built, and you can watch it. We in this role have become, you're conditioned to be mean because you're by yourself. And that's what everyone forgets about being a CEO or being a leader in an organization. You're really on an island. You don't have, your employees can't be your friends. You can be friendly with them, but they're not friends. And you can't share with them everything because it's your job as a leader that you can't be completely honest. And you have to give them the tools and what they need, but you can't also let them see that, oh my God, we're not going to make payroll this week. How am I going to come up with additional funds? How am I going to do these things? That's our job as you're building. It's how do you convey that and let them know that you don't become bitter about it. And so many of us in this chair, over the course of time, you just become emotionless because you've sort of fought through these things so many times. And that's where you can't be. You have to be open. You got to be honest with them. You've got to tell them what's going on. And you've got to make sure that they know that. And as I preach to everyone who gets in here, and as I preach to some of the biggest in the industry that I know and friends with and all that, once you lose that, your organization just becomes another org. And it pains me to watch some of these orgs right now where that leadership and that heart is being removed from them because they don't continue it.
Gregg, I'm so privileged, and I'm walking away today, and I think my 2 cents in closing is, as we all sit here in workforce, what are we all going to do as leaders to go inspire and take care of one person on our team better tomorrow or today? And I'm thankful that I have Gregg Majewski in my life because he came in at the right point in time. And when he made the comment about having smarter people at the table, I'm the dumbest guy at the table, and I have friends like Gregg who I can call or text or have Sunday conversation over Liverpool and Arsenal, or I need a business advice. And use this time while we're together to network with each other. And Gregg, I just want to thank you for your insights, your sharing, your compassion. You've personally made an impact in my life, and I thank you for that. And I want to thank you all for being here today, giving me the time. Thanks to Industry Now, and thanks to Gregg. So round of applause for Gregg Majewski, everybody.